All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of my daily vlog. It's Daily Vlog 2025, number 88, and today I needed to drink. Especially since today, I'm going to be pissing off some people and maybe going as far as enough to get myself canceled. So let's see how this goes. If you looked at the clickbait title, that I haven't actually created a title for this, I record them, then I come up with a title. But I'm relatively certain I'm going to be using a clickbait title, not so much for the clickbait aspect, but for the fact that I am going to be critiquing someone that's really big in the TTRPG scene. And the reason I'm going to be singling them out specifically is not because I think they're a bad person and need to die. No, it's because the mistakes that they're making are really, really common mistakes for new dungeon masters and really new people in positions of power or authority. And I want to use their situation as a case study to hopefully learn something from. So this is not me specifically attacking a certain person. That's why their name's not going to appear in the title of this. And I'm going to very rarely mention their actual name because the purpose of this video is not to attack this particular person. It is to use their very, very public mistakes as a way to learn something. If the person in question, whom I will name in a moment here, is actually watching this, you're amazing and funny and wonderful. You're just making some pretty big mistakes that if you take a step back and learn from them, I think you can truly be one of the greats, despite the fact that I'm relatively certain that you think you are right now. So anyway, person in question is Abria Iyengar. But she's amazing. She's done all these things. She was the first non-Matt Mercer DM for Critical Role, or non-critical role DM, because I'm relatively certain a few of the Critical Role cast members ran things long before Abria did. But anyway, so why do you have a problem? Are you ist? Are you insert ist here? No. However, I remind people of this all the time because a lot of people don't realize this. The name Trainer Jody has nothing to do with Pokemon. I like Pokemon, but it's not where my name came from. My name, the trainer part of my name is when, before my disability made it basically impossible for me to work. I was a trainer. That's what I specialized in. I worked, to be perfectly honest, my training skills were utilized in a lot of different places, but as far as getting paid to do it, I worked in the service industry, specifically in retail, and I mostly focused on sales training and management training. I trained salesmen and women salespeople, and I trained managers. And the people that I trained that listened to what I said did exceptionally well. To the point where I know of at least 2 people that I trained that actually got to higher roles than I could because I was very good at training. I was so good at what I did that I had a really hard time getting promoted because if they would promote me, then I would stop doing all the stuff I was doing here and start doing other management things. And I had one manager in particular that was so impressively bad at their job that shortly after I left, like within a year of me leaving, the entire store closed. Like it wasn't like, oh, the store no, the entire store doesn't exist anymore. It was changed into a Goodwill. So, yeah, they really didn't want me getting promoted because then I would stop doing their job for them. So anyway, So the reason that I'm in particular singling out Abria is not because I have some kind of personal vendetta against them or anything like that. It is in particular because I have seen the exact same issues that she is showing in some of my management trainees and some of my sales trainees, and even in other things where I wasn't getting paid to train them, but I got into kind of a training role. Like, I've trained new dungeon masters and things like that. So what's my problem with her? Well, specifically, I believe this is my interpretation of some of the actions that I have seen her take. I believe that she thinks she is like a god tier dungeon master and player, which is fine. Confidence is great. Confidence is sexy. It's a wonderful thing, and a lot of times confidence can be the thing that bridges your skill level and the thing that you're trying to do. You might not actually have the skill to do something, but a lot of times the confidence to know what you can do and know what you can't do, and then push yourself further, can actually lead to you being able to do things that are technically outside your ken. So it's not the fact that she's confident that I have the issue with. It is, she is confident to the point where she believes that she doesn't have to learn anymore. And that's where we get an issue. One of the most fascinating things I have seen in the world, because I've been lucky enough to work with some truly phenomenally skilled people. And in addition to that, I watch and observe the best of the best in a bunch of different fields, whether it's music, whether it's D&D, martial arts, whatever. There's this interesting thing that I've noticed between the ideas of a true master of something and someone that is simply highly skilled. A true master of an art form of whatever it is, when they see someone new that is starting to rise up in the ranks, their initial thought is, that's wonderful. I should help them get to my level. Someone who is just extremely skilled, when they see a new person kind of rising through the ranks, their first thought is, they are a threat. I better make sure that I'm better than them. A true master stops worrying about being the best and really being viewed as the best, and really worries about the art form itself, improving themselves so they can improve others. Someone that's simply just extremely skilled, or someone with just a lot of natural born talent, is going to be very caught up in the idea of, no, I'm super amazing and wonderful, and I need to show it all the time. And they will feel threatened by someone who is going up. Now, am I saying that Abria has shown off that she feels threatened? Not really. But one of the most common things I've seen in these highly skilled or highly talented people is an inability for them to learn from critique. Some of them can learn from their own mistakes, but specifically critique, and especially critique from people that they don't believe has the authority or the experience or whatever to critique them, they not only will choose not to listen to that critique, but they will actively fight against it. Anything that is said by someone that they feel is a lesser expert than them, they will actively fight against that critique. Oh, you think that I don't do this enough? Well, guess what? I'm going to do it even less, because you decided that that's what it's supposed to be. And I'm going to prove to you that I don't have to do that to be amazing at what I do. Like I said, it's an extremely common thing for people that either have a natural talent that they have yet to learn how to kind of hone into a set of skills, or someone that is very, very skilled but hasn't quite learned how to deal with that skill. Kind of like the big fish, little pond type thing. When you're the best in your field, because everyone else around you just really can't compete with you, and then you're put into a bigger pond where there are bigger fish. Well, your mindset is still, I'm still the biggest fish, and so there's no real reason. And I really believe that that's one of the things that she deals with, and she deals with it poorly. Now, I will 100% admit I have not watched a ton of her DMing, and I haven't watched a ton of her playing. And part of that is because when I see people making these mistakes that, again, are extremely common, it annoys me. And it's one of those things, like it's for example, I have perfect pitch. When people either sing out of tune or play out of tune, for most people, unless there's another note next to it where you can hear that there's tension between the notes and there's dissonance, most people, it doesn't really matter. For me, however, I just naturally know where the notes are supposed to be to a point. I'm not quite, I can't remember the dude's name now. I'm not like amazing, and I've lost some of it due to my anxiety and everything, making it really hard for me to focus. But I can still tell, like you guys can't see it, but I have a guitar right there. I can tune a guitar by ear, at least standard tuning, mostly because I've just never learned any of the other tuning methods that you can do for a guitar. But I can, in my sleep, I can tune a guitar by ear, just because I know. And not just like, oh, you push the thing and then you make sure the notes are No, I can tune each string individually because I just understand. And it's not because I'm a super amazing. I have perfect pitch. It's something that you're born with for the most part. I believe there's a Russian school where they can actually train you to have perfect pitch. But for the most part, the vast majority of people that have perfect pitch, it's just something that you're born with. And it doesn't make you a better musician or a worse musician. It just means that you interact with music differently. And so when I hear people that are playing out of tune, or they're not quite hitting their intervals correctly or anything like that, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. It can actually cause me migraines. Like there have been certain situations where I haven't been able to watch performances and things like that because the tuning was bad enough for me. I'm not saying that the tuning was super, super bad, because here's another fun fact. Tuning is not the end-all, be-all of music. And actually, if you do use absolutely perfect A440 tuning, most people will find it very strange. Even when you do something like, really fascinating thing about pianos. When you tune a grand piano, you don't actually tune every note to the correct pitch. You actually tune them. You'll tune like A440. That's A4 on a keyboard. There are 88 keys, which means there's 8 different versions of each note. A flat, A natural. The fourth note is referred to as A4, or the fourth version of the A. So the first A, second A, third A, fourth A. That's called A4. And it's 2 notes below what's called middle C, which is C4. And 440 hertz is the frequency of that particular note in Western music. So when I say A440, that's referring to standard tuning for Western music in general. It means that the A4 on your keyboard has a frequency of 440 hertz. A lot of times, or the vast majority, I think all the times, when piano tuners tune a piano, They actually will tune one or two notes perfectly, and then they tune everything else based on that, not actually looking to make sure that every single note is on the exact frequency it's supposed to, because it doesn't sound very good to our ears. We enjoy a little bit of dissonance and stuff like that. So, anyway, back to this. Watching Abria play and watching her DM, to me, is like that someone playing out of tune. Because the mistakes that she's making, again, are really, really common mistakes. But she actively fights against the idea of learning from them. Now, use a couple different examples here. So, what are the mistakes that she's making? Like, you keep saying she's making these mistakes. Maybe you should give us some proof. And you just said you don't watch yourself. I've watched a few of her things. And a really good example, I made a video about this forever ago, back when Exandria Unlimited was actually going on. There is a situation where Abria basically kind of changed the rules on the fly, and one of her players is actually asking for some clarification, because the rules that were written in the book were not being followed. She had made a judgment call, which is a thing that you can do as a dungeon master. But it really felt that the judgment call was made specifically to spite one of the players. It didn't really make cohesive sense. She never really explained why she didn't, and when she was challenged, which is not a bad thing. If your players challenge you on a ruling or something, it doesn't mean that they're toxic players or anything like that. It means that they're not understanding what you're doing. And whether whether their challenge is justified or not, it indicates that the way that you are communicating is not working. It doesn't mean that you're a bad communicator. It might be that they're just not listening, but the communication that's happening between the dungeon master and the player is not working. And so even if it does seem like they just keep challenging you for no particular reason, it does mean that something in the communication has to change. And sometimes that's as simple as, sitting them down and going, hey, listen, every single time I have made a ruling, you have challenged and argued with me about it. What's going on here? Why do you think that is there something in my rulings that's not making sense to you? Do you think that I'm doing something wrong? Do you just not understand why I'm making the rulings that I'm making? And sometimes just that real quick conversation is enough to be able to clear everything up and move forward. And sometimes that conversation will basically end with the idea, obviously this is not the right table for you, because these are the rulings that I'm going to continue making. And if you don't like these particular rulings, you're not going to like the rulings that I'm going to make going forward. So maybe we should just go, hey, this was fun, and just go our separate ways. It's very rare for that to happen, but it does happen. With our lovely dungeon master that we're referring to today, when she was confronted, her response, I don't remember word for word, but it was something to the effect of, you want to know why? Because fuck you, that's why. That is a bad way to deal with a challenge. Again, even if the player in question was just doing it to be a troll, was just trying to get under their skin, was trying to, game the system or anything like that, the response of fuck you, that's why, is not an okay response to that. Because what it does is it shows the player, it basically tells the player, listen, you actually don't matter. Your understanding of this game doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want, and if I decide that I want to change the game in a way that doesn't make sense to you, you better just fucking suck it up and deal with it. Because your understanding is not important to this game. This is my game, and you should be happy that you're allowed to play in it. That's effectively what you're saying when you go, you know what? Fuck you. That's why. That's not an okay thing. However, that is an extremely common thing for people people that are new to positions of power for them to do. And it was something that I used to have to talk to my management staff about when I was training them. The basic rule of thumb that I would teach all new managers is: congratulations, you're a manager. You have authority. You have certain abilities that you didn't used to have before. If you use that authority, you're probably going to lose your job. What are you talking about? If you ever have to pull rank on an employee, congratulations. That employee has just become either the worst employee you're going to have, or they're going to quit. Both of which is going to affect your job negatively. Because if they remain at the company and just stay there to make your life horrible, well, you are judged based on how well your employees do their jobs. And if one of them is actively doing the worst job physically possible, they're going to blame you for that. And justifiably so. Pulling rank is not a good idea. And that's what, you want to know why? Fuck you. That's why. That's pulling rank. I'm the dungeon master. I can make whatever decisions I want, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's pulling rank. Pulling rank doesn't work. We get the term, and I've made multiple videos about this. We get the term pulling rank from the military. And in the military, pulling rank technically does work, but there's reasons why. One, when you are given an order, which is how pulling rank goes, hey, I am a captain, you're a lieutenant, so you have to do what I tell you to do. When you do that, if they disobey your order, they get sent to jail. In a D&D game, if you pull rank and they choose not to listen to you, you want to know what happens to them? Not a goddamn thing. They might get kicked out of the game. Oh my word. What in the world am I going to do if I can't play this make-believe game with someone that seems to do things just to spite me? Oh no, wah. There's no downfall. Unless there is something massively important about them being a part of that game, you're never going to be able to pull rank. The other thing that the reason that pulling rank works in the military is depending on where you are. If an officer pulls rank on you and you refuse in like a time of war, you can die. So there are actual consequences to not listening to a superior officer when they pull rank in the military. Doesn't happen literally anywhere else. In retail, I used to tell my managers, guess what? If you pull rank on them, you know the only thing you have to kind of wave over them is their paycheck. And guess what? This is retail. We don't pay them enough for them to care. And if we fire them here, they can have a new job tomorrow making the exact same money, possibly even more than they make right now, but they won't have to deal with you. So for them, that'll be a promotion. We have nothing. There's nothing that we can do if we pull rank except to fire them. And most new managers don't have the ability to hire or fire. So even then, it's like, you want to pull rank? Fantastic. You have to convince the store manager that the person that you just pulled rank on, which I told you not to do, and they know because they've been in this for 10 or 15 years, that you should never do. You have to convince them that you pulled rank because you had to. It's not going to work. Your job's just going to get significantly harder. And if a manager gets fired, guess what? It's a lot harder to get, despite the fact that there's tons of managers in retail, it's a lot harder to get rehired as a manager after you've been fired than it is to get rehired as just a rank and file employee. Especially since a lot of retail managers know each other. I made an entire video to talking about it, but yeah, even competitors, the managers know each other. It's just how it works. So, getting back to Dungeons and Dragons. You know why? Because fuck you, that's why, is never the right way. In that situation, she had made a ruling that was confusing the players because it did go against rules as written and rules as intended. Now, is that horrible? Is it disgusting? That mean that she should never be a dungeon master again? Absolutely not. I will make rulings that go against both rules as written and rules as intended all the time. And the reason being is in the situation that we are dealing with at that point, in my mind, it makes more sense for it to be ruled in that particular way, because the rules as written and the rules as intended were intended for the writer's version of Dungeons and Dragons, not my version. So I'm not saying the idea that she made a ruling that went against how the book game is designed to be played is somehow that's the problem that she had. No. The problem was the players didn't understand why she made the ruling. And that's the most important part when you are a DM or GM or storyteller or whatever you want to call yourself. When you are making rulings, the most important part of making those rulings is that your players understand why. One of my rules of training is the why is more important than the what. And the reason why is if you just tell someone this is how it works, that's great. Or this is what you're going to do, that's great. And every time they're put in a situation where they're asked, should I do this? They can do that. However, any situation where a variable is changed, where they don't have a clear, oh, I was told to do this when this happens, the person is not going to be able to make the decision on their own because they don't understand why they were told to do it. They were just told to do it. By telling them the why, the explanation behind, okay, the reason we do it this way is because of this. Then, when they get into a similar but different situation, they go, well, wait a minute. The reason I did it this way was because of this explanation. If I stick to this explanation and I apply it to this situation, then this is the way I want to go. And in a collaborative storytelling environment like Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPGs in general, it is extremely important for the players to be able to understand the why, because they are just as much a part of telling the story as the Dungeon Master is. And if you start doing things where you just tell them, no, you can't do that, or that's not how it works this way, and you don't explain why, well, then they can't, you're starting to put these kind of artificial limits on what they can and can't do. And especially in a situation like Exandria Unlimited, which is where that particular incident happened, it's not only that they're playing with a group of friends, they're broadcasting it to thousands of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people. So they don't want to look foolish and they don't want to be chastised publicly. And so it's going to make them significantly more hesitant to do anything because they don't want to be called out in public. And that's effectively what happened in that particular situation. Now, again, the why is more important than the what. Why did she react this way? Again, I am theorizing here. I have never met this person. We have never had a conversation. We do have some mutuals. But she and I have never interacted in any way, shape, or form. My theory, based on my own experiences dealing with new dungeon masters and dealing with other people that have been put into positions of authority, is you want to know why? Because fuck you, that's why. She was anticipating the backlash she was going to get from the ravenous critters that like to critique everything. And so this was a preemptive punch, basically, to prevent them from attacking them. This is a preemptive strike to prevent them from attacking her. Again, I understand the thought process behind that, but preemptive strikes in general are very, very tricky things. First of all, you have to have a lot of information. You have to have so much information that you can justify punishing someone for something they haven't done yet. Now, there are a lot of situations where preemptive strikes are extremely important. Again, we get the idea of a preemptive strike from war. The idea of, oh, the bad guys are going to do this. We've gotten information that they're going to do this. And if they do this thing, really, really bad things are going to happen. So we're going to strike them preemptively. We're going to stop them from being able to do that before they are able to do that. If the intelligence that you got was wrong, they weren't planning on doing that, there's a very good possibility that you might have just committed a war crime because you have now attacked someone completely unprovoked. And now everybody's mad at you. You might get sanctioned by various things. The other problem is, what if the intelligence that you have, that you think you've discovered on your own, was leaked to you? They wanted you to do exactly what it is that you're doing because you were going to put a bunch of forces over here because it takes a lot of resources to be able to do this preemptive strike. And now you've completely left this flank open, and now they're going to be able to do something really, really bad. You may have just lost the war because you thought you knew something. You predicted something that was going to happen that never was going to happen. So my theory, again, I have never spoken with her. We do not communicate in any way, shape, or form. My theory as to why she did this is this is a preemptive strike. I'm going to stop their attacks before they can attack me. And it didn't work. First of all, she's very well loved in the tabletop RPG. I can't think of the word now. My brain is just gone, folks. Community. That's the word I was thinking for. She's well loved in the TTRPG community. As far as I've been able to research, it looks like she got her start over on Hyper RPG playing in Kolok 1991, which was a very innovative live play show GM'd by Zach Eubank. Now I believe he's Eubank Lim. Something like that. He's married to a wonderful woman named Malika, and they're wonderful and amazing people. But it was... if you never watched Kolok, it's a hell of a thing. And I mean that in the greatest way possible. I can't watch it because it messes with my PTSD. Because it's very kind of surreal and weird. It's based on Twin Peaks. Let's put it that way. It's inspired by Twin Peaks. If you're familiar with Twin Peaks, that was a fucked up TV show. And Kolok is Twin Peaks. But that was in 2018. So she has only been involved with tabletop RPGs. As far as I can tell, I believe that was her first time playing anything. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But it does kind of make sense to me. That was the first time she'd actually played a TTRPG. And 7 years later... just a couple years later, she was already running her own games, and she was making a name for herself because she was involved with really, really big names. She was involved with Dimension 20. She's involved with Critical Role. She's done a ton of different things. And I think a lot of it went to her head and made her think that she's significantly more skilled than she actually is. And that's not to say that she is not a skilled dungeon master or a skilled player or a skilled actor. She is. She's just not nearly as good as she thinks she is. And that creates problems. That creates the situation that we saw in Exandria Unlimited. You want to know why? Because fuck you. That's why. I am so good at this, I don't have to explain myself to you. And if you even try, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm the Dungeon Master. I am God. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Look where I am. I'm on Critical Role. Look where you are. You're watching us in your basement. That's not a good way to interact with that. When we go back to the situation again, there was a breakdown of communication there between the Dungeon Master and the players. The players at that point felt like she was actively fighting against them. Like she was actively trying to hurt them in their characters. And they didn't understand why the rules that everyone had agreed to were not being followed. And the way that they were being broken was very much favoring the DM over the players. It's another tip I generally tend to give to the dungeon masters. Bending the rules is 100% fine. You know, you do you. But in general, it's going to be better if you bend the rules in favor of the players than in favor of yourself. Every single time. Does that mean that you can never make a ruling that is better for the dungeon master than it's for the players? No. But if you're constantly bending the rules in your favor instead of their favor, your players are going to feel betrayed. If you're constantly bending the rules in their favor versus your favor, your players are going to feel supported. And that's what you want. You want your players to trust you. And the Exandria Unlimited situation was a perfect example of a breakdown of trust. And again, I don't believe any of them have any kind of ill feelings towards her specifically or anything like that. They're friends, they're colleagues. I don't think any of them think that she's a bad person or even that she's a bad dungeon master. But that particular instance was a really good example of, hey, obviously there's been a communication breakdown. And if we want this to continue going, we need to fix that communication. And it could have been something that happened off stream. This is something that I've done many, many times before, both streaming games and also when I've been running games at conventions where, or really anytime I have like a time limit. If somebody brings up challenges one of my rulings saying, well, this doesn't make sense, and, you know, they start citing things, I go, okay, I understand that that's your view. This is the ruling that I'm making for right now, because we need to keep going. After we're done, you and I can have a conversation, and maybe we'll retcon this later or whatever. It's perfectly fine. But we have a limited amount of time here. There's other people here. That's the ruling that I made. It makes sense to me. And I unfortunately don't have the time to explain all of it right now. But I promise I will. I just can't do it right now. That addresses that, hey, I understand that you're not agreeing with this. We're at an impasse. And it gives them a why as to, well, we have to keep going anyways. Again, the why is more important than the what. So by sitting there and going, hey, I acknowledge that you have a problem with this. And I acknowledge that it needs to be fixed. However, this isn't the time to fix it. If we dedicate all the time to doing it now, everybody is going to suffer because we might not be able to finish this adventure. Afterwards, I'm perfectly fine dealing with this. And it's a really, really effective way. And it doesn't have to come off as condescending or anything like that. Like I said, I've done it when I'm streaming. It's like, I get it. We need to keep going forward. But put a pin in it. After we're done, we can talk about it, okay? And you can even, if you don't want to, again, the idea of being kind of called out in public is a very scary thing. It's one of the reasons why in every game that I stream, I have a chat that the audience cannot see. It is exclusively for Roll20. I do not show the Roll20 chat in any of the games that I've ever streamed ever. Because the Roll20 chat is where I communicate with my players, and you can whisper things to them there. If you are a game that likes to stream it because it shows the rolls and everything that they make, it's perfectly fine. Have another chat available, a Discord channel, your Zoom chat, whatever you need to do to have a private chat channel so that the players can communicate with the Dungeon Master without the audience knowing. And in that situation, it can be as simple as, hey, I had a question about this. Hey, I get your question. Just sent you a message in chat. And let you deal with it for right now. So that's what could have happened. If she didn't feel the need that she wanted to go into the description, it could have just been as simple as, I get that it's confusing. However, we need to keep going. That's the ruling that I've made, and I'm standing by it. I promise as soon as we're done with this session, we can have a conversation about this. But I need to keep going. It doesn't come off as you're doing something wrong or I am immutable. I am impossible to question. It just kind of brings up the actual fact of we have a limited amount of time. So yeah, and like I said, it points towards the idea that she believes that she's significantly more skilled than she actually is. And again, that's not saying that she isn't skilled. She's just not as skilled as she assumed that the only reason people would be bringing this up was to attack her for some immutable trait. That it was just going to turn into this dog pile of trolls and things like that. So she was going to stop the trolls initially, and that wasn't why they were bringing it up. They were genuinely confused because she had ruled that an ability worked a way that it wasn't designed to work, and it had massive implications for the rest of the game. They weren't sure what they could and couldn't do anymore. And I think it was MCDM. What's his name? Colville. I think it was Colville. I'm not 100% certain on this. I believe it was Colville. Somebody asked him about, why you use this particular setting or that particular system or whatever that. And his response was something to the effect of, the reason you choose any tabletop RPG system is so that it gives you a common language for you all to utilize to create your story. That's what tabletop systems are. They are an agreed upon set of rules that gives everyone a common language that they can all speak to each other, so that the fact that everybody's brain works differently and everybody has different ideas about how they want the story to go, by choosing a collective language that you can all use to explain your thought process, and that gives you kind of structure for how to implement your ideas into the game, you have an effective way to tell a group story. When you stop using that agreed upon language, or you start just changing the meanings of words at will, then you're no longer using an agreed upon language. You're basically playing Calvin Ball. You're making up the rules as you go. But the problem with it is, in Calvin Ball, anyone can make up rules. When you're the dungeon master, you're the only one playing Calvin Ball. Everyone else is playing soccer. And so you get to magically change the rules, and they have to stick to the rules. You've created a power imbalance, and it's not really fun. Another reason why I tend to recommend bend the rules towards your players instead of against them: the game is already stacked in your favor. As the dungeon master, you can do anything you want. And that's how the game is designed. The dungeon master I can't remember the term. It's lopsided as far as power is concerned. The dungeon master can create any monster that they want. They can make any ruling that they want. The rules are already skewed in your favor. There's really not too many instances where bending the rules for you is ever really going to be necessary, because the rules are already bent your way. So, in general, when I break rules, quote unquote, when I bend rules, it generally tends to be towards the players, because the rules are already bent towards me. Moving on. Had she realized that this wasn't an attack against her and this wasn't giving fuel to the trolls, this was an actual legitimate attempt to open the lines of communication that had been broken when she decided to stop using the agreed upon language, she probably could have learned something and become a better dungeon master because of that. But she didn't, because she doesn't think she had anything to learn. She is already at the top of her game. Which, if you look at the accolades that she has, it's very easy to kind of list her in the kind of upper echelon of dungeon masters. She has run games for Matt Mercer. Most people will agree, even if you don't like him, Matt Mercer is an incredibly skilled dungeon master. So is Brennan Lee Mulligan. So is Mark Holmes, however you pronounce his last name. He's a super cool guy. Like, there are people in the TTRPG community that are just considered kind of the top tier, and especially in the D&D community, Mercer and Mulligan are very, very well respected. And I believe there was like a DM roundtable where it was Mercer, Mulligan, and Abria. So from a accolade standpoint, it would be very, very easy to claim, well, she is one of the top DMs because look at the people that she works with. Look at the people that she's DM'd for. She has the accolades, but simply because you have been in prestigious situations does not make you a master. And I do consider Brennan Lee Mulligan a master as far as being a game master, an actual master, not just a game master, but someone who's really mastered the art form that is being a game master. And Matt Mercer is another person I believe is a master of that particular art form. They're very, very good. And you can kind of see it in just how often they try to kind of introduce more people to the game, how welcoming and supportive they are, and they tend to treat other people as masters. It's another thing that I've seen really, really often is people that are true masters of their arts. When even a novice comes forward, unless the novice is doing something like offensive or is obviously doing something wrong, the master is going to treat them with the same respect that they would reserve for another master. I've seen it in the martial arts world. I have seen it in the cooking world, definitely. Chefs in general are arrogant assholes. Like it's part of, as crazy as this sounds, it's part of the job. My father was a chef, and you are expected to be arrogant. Like it literally is part of the job. However, I have seen truly masterful chefs interact with other masters, and there's this kind of accepted, oh, you're a chef too, and you just kind of see this mutual respect. And the ones that are still massively full of themselves, if they talk to someone who's on kind of a lesser level than they are, they will talk down to them. They won't treat them with respect or anything like that. But true masters, even if they're talking to like a home cook, they will still treat them with respect and dignity, and understand that they may not be a Michelin star chef, but they understand their particular kitchen better than anyone else because it's their kitchen. And they understand their particular recipes better than anyone else because it's their recipes. And they do deserve some respect for that. Unless they're trying to throw their weight around and say that they're better than everyone else, everyone deserves a modicum of respect. And so both Mercer and Mulligan treat her with respect, like they would treat any other kind of master level to the dungeon master. And I think it's kind of gone to her head. The other example, and I made a video talking about this a little while ago as well. At the finale for finale for campaign 3 for Critical Role, they brought back a lot of former players from Critical 3. One of them was the dungeon master in general, and she was 100% a disruptive player. She was trying to force herself into situations where she wasn't supposed to be. The DM, Mercer, actually had to... He didn't really chastise her. Like, he didn't just go, stop. But in-game, he physically had to stop her character from interacting with a scene that didn't involve her. And that comes to the other kind of issue that I think she needs to deal with. She is a phenomenally skilled entertainer, and she is very, very entertaining, which is a good thing. A dungeon master should be entertaining. You know, it's a game. It should be fun. That being said, I don't want I don't want this to come off as condescending or insulting, because it's not what it's intended to be. It is just an observation. She is a very selfish actor. And what I mean by that is not that, she's this little miser and she only cares about herself. It's not that. It is, for her to be entertaining, she needs to be involved in everything. She is very self-motivated as an entertainer. I need to be actively participating in everything to ensure that it's entertaining because I am entertaining. Which can be very useful in a lot of different situations. If you are like the lead in a television show, it makes sense for you to be involved in everything because it is your show. And I think in that particular instance, she would probably work relatively well. But in an ensemble style show, like Dungeons and Dragons in general is going to be more of an ensemble than a main character with a bunch of supporting characters. You can't act that way. You have to understand when it's time for you to step back and give other people the spotlight. And in addition to that, you need to understand how to give other people the spotlight. Which, from an acting perspective, is not something that every actor can do. It is a skill. It does require work. To learn how to make another person look good without stealing the scene is very, very difficult. It's not something that comes naturally to a lot of actors because a lot of actors are very self-motivated in general. Now, I'm not saying that they are narcissists or anything like that. I mean that the motivation for them to become better at their craft is their own enjoyment. They enjoy doing this, and therefore they want to get better at it so they can have more fun. That's not an inherently negative thing, but it does mean that if you are put into a situation where you have to make the choice between having more fun and making the scene slightly worse or having less fun and making the scene better, a lot of times actors will choose the more fun, which generally means stealing the scene, doing other the things that kind of take the audience away from where they're supposed to be. And it may be that the audience absolutely loves it, but you're hurting the rest of the actors. And that's effectively what she did in that scene. Was she was like, well, I want to be entertaining and I want the audience to have the best time possible, and the best way for me to do that is to always be on, to always be yes-anding. Even if I wasn't the person that they said it to, I'm going to yes-and every single person. And I'm just going to continue to just keep giving them more and more and more and more and more. And that's not the greatest thing to do when you are in an ensemble type situation, which again is an extremely common thing for new, younger actors to deal with, especially if they've never actually had to, if they've never really had a chance to be a part of a truly skilled ensemble cast. Like I've seen shows that are ensemble casts where half the ensemble doesn't know what they're doing. And it's not that they're all like trying to steal the show. They're background characters. And there's like one or two like really, really solid actors. And then everyone else is just kind of feeding off of them. And that can create a very entertaining show. But there's been maybe one or two times in my life where I've been part of just a truly gifted and skilled group of actors doing an ensemble show. And there really is there's no way to describe what it's like, because you get to go on stage, and the thing with acting in general is it's not just learning your lines and emoting correctly. It's reacting to the scene, it's reacting to your scene partners and the things like that. And if your scene partner is not giving you the things that you need to be able to put on a good show, then you have to come up with it yourself somehow. And it can be very, very frustrating. But in those rare instances where both you and your scene partner and anyone else on stage just is in the moment, and you all are kind of vibing off each other, and it's just things are going and lines are just hitting exactly the way they're supposed to hit, and you guys are able to kind of look at each other and instantly know what we're supposed to do. Like, it really is indescribable. It's an amazing experience. I remember one show that I did. The show is You Can't Take It With You. It's a brilliant, brilliant show. It's one of my favorite shows ever. And the basic plot of this show is there's this really eccentric family. And they're all like crazy. Like the father creates fireworks. One of the kids has a printing press and just likes printing things, but doesn't like print like novels or stuff. He'll just print sentences on paper, and then we'll go out and distribute them. And they're not even normal sentences. They're just, oh, that was a cool phrase, I'm going to print it. So they're a very eccentric family. And they have this daughter that falls for a banker. And that's where the conflict of the show is. The daughter is the most normal of anyone out there. She's the only one that really works outside of the house. Everyone else, they all just have money from grandpa. He made it rich somehow. And so they don't have to work or anything like that. One of the people likes to play the xylophone. Can't play it worth a damn, but he enjoys it, and so that's what he does. And so she's the most normal. She gets a job outside of the house. She meets this dude. They're about to be engaged, and so she wants his family to meet her family. And she tries to kind of prep the family, go, please, please don't be weird. Please don't be weird. And they're all setting up for the next night to meet. And the whole family, they're very supportive of the daughter. So like, yeah, no, we'll be totally fine. But it was supposed to be tomorrow night. And he comes tonight with his family. And they're in various states of undress, and weird things are going on. They get raided by the FBI. Like, it's a nonsense thing. In that scene, and this was in high school, I'm in there, and it's this big group cast, and everyone is doing, like, the chaos is just going off, and it's being fun. And so right before everything goes just absolutely crazy, it's my character and my character's father, who's played by this kid that I think was like 2 years older than me, or 3 years. He was a senior and I was a freshman. And so we're both in there, and we're both dressed very similarly, and he's my father and I'm his son. So we, without thinking, we just kind of vibed with each other. We started having kind of similar mannerisms without even trying. That's just how it worked. And so there was this one point where we both sat down on the couch, and without talking about it, we'd never done this before. We didn't, we did it every time after that. But it was during a live performance. And we just kind of looked at each other, and we both crossed our legs the exact same way at the exact same time. And the audience lost it. It was the funniest thing they'd ever seen, because there's all this kind of chaos and stuff going on. And we just both go, and we just do it perfectly as if it was rehearsed. And that feeling of just looking at him, and he knew what he was going to do, and I knew what I was going to do, and we just did it, and it worked really well. That is incredibly amazing and fun, but it does require you to give away a little of yourself. In that particular instance, it wasn't that I did something funny or he did something funny. We just both did something that was very kind of nonchalant. It was not intended to be funny. We weren't trying to steal the scene or anything like that. We just both decided that it was something that would make sense for our characters to do, and we did it. It was a very giving type thing. The dungeon master in question, she doesn't seem to quite understand that, which is, again, extremely common with inexperienced actors. It takes a lot of experience to learn how to be giving on set. And it takes a lot of experience to be able to understand how to be a supporting character as opposed to being a lead. Being a lead is remarkably simple. Being a supporting character can be significantly more difficult, despite the fact that the prestige is all in the lead actor. And everyone goes, oh, well, they lead the show. Yes, But there are so many different books that you can read about how to be a lead. There are so many different examples that you can get, and it's very, very easy to learn from other leads because they're right there, right in the forefront. Being a really good supporting actor is a lot more difficult. There's not as many books written about it. It's a lot more difficult to find the supporting actors because when they're doing their job right, you don't notice them because their job is to make the lead look better. But it's an essential part of any show. And the same thing is true about doing any sort of kind of group storytelling. Like in a tabletop RPG, you need to know when you should take the lead, and you need to know when you need to step back and allow someone else to shine. And in addition to that, you also, if you're good, you also need to know what you can do to help someone else shine. Sometimes it's playing the straight man for their chaos. Other times it's creating chaos so they can be the straight man. Sometimes it's kind of teeing them up for a very emotional scene. Sometimes it's just keeping yourself silent as they go through their things. It's different for every single situation, and I don't think she really has an understanding of that. She understands how to be entertaining because she is very entertaining. She doesn't understand how to interact with other people when she's not the main focus. And there are arguments to be made, about the idea of, well, it was probably the last time she was going to get a chance to play this character. She doesn't get to be part of the cast very often, so there's all these kind of jitters. It was the finale of the thing, so there are arguments to be made that, well, it was just nerves, And yes, that is an explanation. However, it's not an acceptable one. Nerves are part of performing. I was an actor for over a decade. I had a few dozen shows that I was in, from everywhere from like little bit parts all the way up to leads. I've done it all. From the first time, the absolute first time that the curtain rose and the show started, to the very last time I was on stage, the butterflies were always there. They don't go away. You are never not excited. I don't care who you are. It doesn't happen. There's always anxiety. There's always energy. A lot of times it's that anxiety and energy that makes your performance that much better. But every single actor I've ever spoken to, the kind of universal thing that we all can agree on is the butterflies never go away. When you're on stage, you're in the wings before you go out for the first time for the show that night. There's always those little bit of butterflies. It's always there. So the idea of, well, she was excited, she was anxious. Congratulations. So is everyone else on stage. That's part of being an actor, is understanding how to deal with that nervous energy. Which again, for some inexperienced actors, that's a really it's a really common thing for them to make mistakes. It's, oh, well, I was really excited. Okay. I was really anxious because there was a talent scout in the audience, or there was this, or my mom's out there. Okay, all the rest of us also have people we know in the audience. All the rest of us are also hoping to be quote unquote discovered. But we still did our job. It sounds harsh, but if the excuse for her actions was, well, she was just a little excited, and justifiably so. She was on the #1 watched TTRP stream in the world, TTRPG stream in the world. Congratulations. That's her job. I'm sorry to say it's part of being an actor. It's part of being a performer, whether you're performing for 4 people or 4,000. Anxiety's going to be there. It's part of the gig. So yeah, like I said, the entire purpose of this video is not so much to specifically target her, which is why I've tried to refrain from using her name as much as possible. This is not an entire video about this person is the worst person. It's not. It's to show struggles that I believe she's having that are extremely common and ways to deal with them. Abria, if for whatever reason you decide to watch this, first of all, you need to make better life choices. There are significantly better things you could be doing with your time than watching me. But if you're watching, I sincerely appreciate it. I would love to have a more one-on-one conversation with you about this. I'd love to do a podcast with you, whatever you want. I would love to have more communication about this. But this is not about me singling you out. You have made some mistakes that are really, really common. And it doesn't make you a bad dungeon master. It doesn't make you a bad player. It makes you someone that still has things to learn. And I think you might not realize just how much you still need to learn. Doesn't mean that you're not already very, very skilled. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve the things that you've gotten or anything like that. But it does mean you do need to take a step back and realize that there is a lot more growth you can have. And when you do learn that, you will become amazing. For everyone else, again, the mark of a true master is the idea that you're no longer worried about proving yourself. You're no longer worried about upstarts upstaging you. You simply want whatever it is you're a master of to continue to grow. And that includes your own growth. I've never met a master of anything that did not admit, oh, I have a lot more that I need to learn. Being a true master is the acknowledgement that there is so much more that you could learn. And understanding that everyone learning your art form makes it better. Every new idea that comes in can make it better in some way. Whether that's adapting the idea to create a more unique expression of this particular art form, or by looking at the idea, realizing it's not, adapting it into the art form is not going to help it, and getting rid of it. That also will help the art form to grow because you start realizing what the art form isn't. So it's not to say that you need to welcome every single bad idea, but you do need to actually learn. When people have critiques for you, some of them are going to be bad critiques. Some of them, the intention of them is not going to be to make you better. It will simply be to cut you down, make you feel bad. And being a master is part of that is being able to understand that even when the entire purpose of the argument is to make you feel bad and to cut you down, that you can still learn things from it. Just because someone's motivation is bad doesn't mean that they're wrong. And just because somebody's motivation is good doesn't mean that they're right. And a true master can get past the motivation, can get past the emotions of it and break it down into an actual idea and decide, do I like this idea? Do I not like this idea? And more importantly, can I use this idea to make me a better dungeon master, a better player, a better actor, a better chef, whatever it is that you want to be a true master of. Interested to hear from you guys. Do you think I'm fixating on a particular person for some odd reason? Do you guys disagree with the things that I'm saying? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, this is all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.